Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the press. It is an enormous privilege to have been elected the leader of the Parliamentary Liberal Party. I am humbled, I am honoured, and I am up for the job. Ted, it's terrific to have you join me as a deputy. Here in this room, just a couple of hours ago, our colleagues placed their faith and their trust in us. And these positions are gifts of our party room, and I will always respect and value what the members of my party room tell me. I have great affection and great connection with the Liberal Party party room over a career of 25 years. And I've spent a lot of time this week talking to my colleagues, and I'm optimistic that they have the right ideas, and I'm positive about what lies ahead. But on May the 3rd, we faced a significant defeat. And the scale and the size of that defeat is not lost on any of us. And right now, we have to respect the result and reflect with humility. Can I say something about Angus Taylor? Can I acknowledge Angus Taylor for putting his hand up to lead the Liberal Party? He would have been a fine leader of the Liberal Party at this time. Angus and I have worked collegiately together over many years in government and in opposition. He's an intelligent, talented contributor to so many ideas, initiatives, and what we need to do as a Liberal Party going forward, and he will have an integral role in our party with the next steps going forward. As I said, we listened to the Australian people on Saturday, and we will continue to listen to them around the country. We have to have a Liberal Party that respects modern Australia, that reflects modern Australia, and that represents modern Australia. And we have to meet the people where they are. And that's what I am committed to doing and what I'm determined to do. I want to do things differently, and we have to have a fresh approach. I want to harness the talents of every single person in our party room going forward to develop the clear, articulate policy agenda that does meet Australians where they are, to develop robust policy processes, to value those contributions, and I can't wait to get started, along with Ted, on that important task. I want to talk a little bit about me, and I want to talk about my views of the Liberal Party, because the Liberal Party has shaped the person that I am today. My story is a migrant story. It's a small business story. It's a rural Australia story. It's a story about a mum and a family, and it is a modern Australian story. When I came to this country as a young girl from a cold English boarding school in my teenage years, I stepped out of the aeroplane at Brisbane Airport and I looked at this brilliant blue sky, and I knew that I'd come to the best country on earth. And I knew that Australia was a place where I could dream my biggest dreams, and I have. And I've never stopped feeling grateful for this country for what it has given me. I was able to pursue the dream of flying and become a pilot, an aerial stock mustering pilot, flying very small planes very close to the ground. And in my life in Western Queensland, I worked in the shearing sheds. I learnt the value of a hard day's work in the hot sun. I learnt the real value of and the dignity of manual labour. And I always said there was no better wisdom than the wisdom of the shearers in their singlets, sitting in the huts at the end of a hard, hard day. And while they may not have had the education or the training that perhaps others have had, I will always respect that wisdom. And I love it when I see it across this magnificent country. I became, as I said, a farmer's wife, where I raised my 3 children on the family farm. And they were tough years, just like the years so many Australians are experiencing now on the land with the drought that's biting, particularly in northern Victoria and Western Victoria. But from those tough times, I became a strong person, I believe. And I went to study when I was in my 30s, like many mums on the farm. We needed the income. And I was able to pursue 3 finance degrees, including a specialty master's in tax law, which is where my great interest in tax policy comes from. But I found my pathway into politics, and I aligned with Liberal values through the hard work, the effort, the reward, the opportunity. They were my story, and they're many Australian stories. And I'm still just as passionate about the Liberal Party as I was when I hooked up my caravan, the caravan I lived in as a shearer's cook, painted it with Liberal Party logos and towed it up and down the Murray River. By then I had an economics degree and I thought that people would be interested in my analysis of countervailing tariffs. What I learnt was people wanted me to listen to what their lives were like, and I did. And I wanted to represent them. And I knew that nobody in Canberra understood what life was like in the small rural community where I came from. And that fired my determination to walk into the government party room led by John Howard in 2001. I am, as I said, incredibly grateful for what the Liberal Party has given me, and everything that I am as I stand before you today is reflected by the party that has been part of, well, over half of my adult life. And each one of my colleagues has their own uniquely Australian story. And as we develop robust processes with respect to policies going forward, I know that their individual life's journeys will impact that. And that will mean that those policies best reflect what the Australian people are looking for. And I know at the next election we will have a competitive policy offering. I know because Ted, you, me and all of our colleagues, we stood at polling booths across this country and we saw the look on people's faces as they came in, sadly not to vote for us, and they were disappointed and they felt let down. And we understand that, and we must learn from that. And we must take the time to get it right. So I've committed to doing that, taking the time to get it right. It is time to step up, regroup and rebuild for the Australian people. Over to you, Ted, for some remarks, and then we'll take questions.
Susan, thank you very much. Congratulations to you, and thank you for leading our party. I want to start by just echoing Susan's words about Angus Taylor, and allow me as the Deputy to extend similar sentiments to Phil Thompson, who also contested the Deputy position. Let me tell you a little bit about myself too. I grew up the youngest of 9 kids. Mum and Dad had 2 girls, 7 boys. And so as the runt of the litter, I came to know very early the importance of the broader group. That it's not just about you, it's about everybody else. And indeed, it's with that sense of team that I am feeling particularly humbled and honoured to serve as the Deputy Leader of the Liberal Party. Because ultimately, as Susan said, the amount of talent, the depth of talent across the Liberal Party is quite extraordinary. And I think a part of our job moving forward is to ensure that we are unleashing that talent and working together united as a team. I also came to Parliament after 20 plus years in business, and so very much the approach that I have taken to date, and indeed I'll take to this role, serving under Susan as Deputy of the party, is one that brings business methods, a commercial approach, a practical approach. While I may have studied somewhat, ultimately I'm a pragmatic sort of a person. And so I think that too is going to be key for the Liberal Party as we move forward and we form policy. Then when it comes to experience serving as a deputy, Susan, can I say that I'm actually a very experienced deputy leader at home to Sophia and our 3 kids. And if I think of our 3 children, the oldest of whom is 12 and the youngest is around about 20 months, I think of what sort of Australia they are going to live in when they are my age and older. Will it be an Australia that is prosperous, that is strong, that is fiercely independent? Or will it be an Australia that has followed the Labor pathway, an Australia which is poor, which is weak, and which is dependent? It is those children and their peers which drives my service, including as the deputy leader of this party. A party that we saw today when we came together is united around a common set of values. And the Liberal values are Australian values. We believe in the importance of freedom. We believe in the importance of equality. We believe in the importance of a fair go, a belief that with rights comes commensurate responsibilities. With effort comes reward. We believe in the individual. We believe in family. We believe in community. We believe in enterprise, and we believe in entrepreneurship. And these values which unite the Liberal Party are the very values that have the capacity to unite the nation, which is why, as we do rebuild as a party, we will hold a very bad Labor government to account, while also rebuilding in a way that sees us with a values-led, future-focused and economically driven agenda anchored to a positive and clear vision for our nation's future. I'm delighted and humbled to serve as part of the leadership team under you, Susan, and most importantly, to serve my colleagues in the party room in the Australian Parliament as their deputy.
Thank you. Just before we go to questions, if you might indulge me, I just want to say a few words. I want to acknowledge my mum, Angela in Albury. My mum is very sick, and on Mother's Day, before I came up here, I called in to see her, and I thought that it might be the last time that I did. She is in end-of-life care, and this week has been tough because I've kept in touch with her and her medical team and my family, and I just wanted to mention my mum this morning, and I know you'll understand that after I've taken all of your questions exhaustively, I will be heading home to be by her side. And my mum grew up in wartime Britain, and the values of resilience, self-reliance and persistence that I believe I have today come from her. So thank you, Mum. And now we'll do questions in, I think, an orderly fashion, starting with you, Andrew.
Ms Ley, good luck with your mum, and good luck to your mum. What is your view now on nuclear? The gentleman to your left was a massive booster for it, and having federal government-owned nuclear power stations. Is that going to be your position, do you think, going forward?
Well, just here in this party room only a couple of hours ago, I committed to my colleagues that there would be no captain's calls from anywhere by me. And I also committed during the discussions I had with them this week that we would work through every single policy issue, we would canvass the different views, and we would take the time to get it right. And you might hear me saying take the time to get it right quite a lot this morning, because that's really important. And unsurprisingly, in our party, there are many different views, and we will listen and we will take the positions that we need to at the appropriate time. Andrew.
First of all, congratulations to the two of you, and sorry to hear that about your mum. You say that you want to meet people where they are, but following up from my colleague's question, are people in a place that wants net zero, and does that necessarily mean, as far as you guys are concerned, nuclear power?
Well, meeting people where they are involves listening to their views, and every person who walked through that polling booth door and didn't vote for us had some of the same reasons and some had different reasons. So the first thing we need to do is engage with what those reasons are, but also to reassure them that in listening we will develop the best possible policies going forward. And it is as simple as that.
So net
Jason.
zero, but you didn't net zero. I mean, it's been fought long and hard inside your party room. We thought it was settled. Is it settled or not?
It is a position that you've mentioned that we have, but there are different views about how we appropriately reduce emissions. Now, we need to reduce emissions in this country, and Australia needs to play its part in reducing emissions. That I absolutely sign up to. We also know that if we don't do energy policy well, we can crash the energy grid, we can cripple Australian manufacturing, we can have a situation where sovereign manufacturing capability in this country is going out the door backwards or going overseas, which is what I have seen under Mr Albanese's government. So we have to get energy policy as a whole right, but we have to recognise that we need a strong country that is committed to a manufacturing base that relies on cheap, reliable energy.
You're prepared to walk away from net zero?
You're putting words in my mouth, Andrew. No policies have been adopted or walked away from at this time. Jason.
Ms Ley, congratulations on your election as leader. The Liberal Party's ties with big business have become strained over the past 3 years. Will you be working to rebuild those ties with what has been a traditional constituency of the Liberal Party?
Well, you're describing that relationship as strained, and while I don't entirely agree, I do want to say that we will work with big business, that we will engage big business, that we will sit down with everyone, big, small and medium business, and listen to the value that they add to the public policy debate. Now, it won't surprise you, there's many in my party room that are passionate about small business. We've seen 30,000 small businesses go to the wall under Mr Albanese, and that cannot continue. So we will keep our passion for the survival and the vibrancy of small business front and centre, but it doesn't mean we won't talk constructively and well with big business. We will. Karen.
Congratulations to both of you, and very sorry about your mum. Mums are the best. Appreciating that you're here now, will you as leader, unlike your predecessor, continue to put yourself regularly before the Canberra Press Gallery and before a broad section of the media, just, you know, for the basic transparency, accountability and to air ideas?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I will. Sarah.
Thank you, Ms Ley. Just on, obviously, you're going to take some time to think about your shadow ministry, but there is a very new member of the Liberal Party, and Jacinta Price. Do you see her as holding a more senior role, or given she's just entered the party, is maybe staying on the backbench in the near term what you think is best?
I welcomed Jacinta into the Liberal Party room this morning with a big hug, and I know many of my colleagues did. Jacinta is an amazing Indigenous Australian, but someone who is a clear and talented communicator. So I want to make it very clear, and I know I have many times, how much we welcome Jacinta into this party room. I will have more to say about the shaping of my shadow cabinet going forward, but I will say this. My shadow cabinet will include people who did support me in this room this morning and people who did not.
Thank you. Can I ask both of you, you both represent regional electorates. It was a clear finding out of the 2022 election review that there is no pathway to government without winning back city seats. The Liberals have gone backwards in cities this time. Why are you the right team to win back city seats? And if I just may, I have a particularly WA question. Ms Ley, some of your WA colleagues have said to me that given your previous positions against live exports, you know, that they might find it difficult presenting you perhaps to farmers in the community. Do you continue to oppose live exports, or do you think the ban should be repealed?
I'll come back to that, and I'll start with your first question. The road back to government goes through every single seat that we lost, including urban, including suburban, including outer metropolitan, including regional and rural. And I know that different electorates have different characteristics, but I do also know that the timeless values of the Liberal Party in terms of how we present our agenda can be equally adopted, accepted and understood across those electorates. But we did get, we did have a poor result, and I'm not backing away from that. So the first thing we need to do is understand exactly why and how. And Ted and I are not going to stand here and say, yeah, we've worked it out, and no one in my party room will either. So I have spoken to candidates this week who've lost their seats. I have spoken to candidates who put everything on the line, and those have been tough conversations. And one of the things that I promised to them was that when we do the review of the campaign and why we lost, they will be first on the list of the consultation, because they can give us so much information about what we seek. With respect to the live sheep export debate, I did address this very much when I became deputy, and I'm very happy to do so again. My position on the trade is that it should continue. It is safe, it is reliable, and it meets the animal welfare standards that it should. And in discussing the live sheep trade with the Western Australians after I became deputy and travelled over. I met individually with farmers, with representatives of the pastoral industry and WA farmers, and I assured them of my stand, and they would remember those conversations, and I can assure them that my position remains the same. David.
Can I just come back to Andrew's earlier question, just to clarify on net zero? Is that going to be part of the review that you've mentioned will take place? Is that now under review, or is it still your position? And could I ask you also to tell us why you think the Liberals lost so badly?
Energy policy is part of our review. As I said, we have to have the right energy policy for the country, and we have to start from the position of affordable, reliable baseload power. And remember that our competitive advantage in manufacturing this country has always been built on energy, and we need to remember that. And we will have the discussions that you are alluding to. Now, your other question about why, look, we didn't meet people's expectations, and there were reasons that each of us individually will reflect on because of the conversations we've had. I don't want to say there was a particular 1, 2 or 3 reasons. But when I say that we have to meet modern Australia where they are, I think that gives some sense of the listening that we need to do. And we do need to hear what people say, and we do need to act on what we hear. Phil.
Thanks, Ms Ley. But if I may, can I direct my question to Mr O'Brien? Ted, as the Deputy Leader of the Liberal Party, you get to choose your own portfolio. Will you be requesting the Treasury role?
Thanks, Phil. Those are discussions that Susan and I are yet to have. Again, I think one of the challenges we have, to be candid, in the Liberal Party is the enormous amount of talent. And it's not a job that I think would be easy for Susan in this case. And she and I are yet to finalise those discussions.
Would you like
Sam? Would you like Sam, I'm going to a woman in the room.
Okay, you said no captain's call. You also said the party needs to reflect modern Australia. You've called for quotas or targets in 2021 and 2022, I think 40 and 50% respectively. Do you still believe in that? If so, how fast do you plan to move on that? And do you believe in your personal interactions with the Prime Minister on the floor of Parliament that he's always treated you with respect?
With respect to my comments about women in the Liberal Party, I want to say right here and now, we need more women in our party. We need more women in our party organisation. We need more women in this party room. Had we done better at the last election, we would have outstanding women in this party room, and I don't want to name 1 or 2 because I know I'm going to miss 2 or 3. So our fortunes when it comes to electoral defeat unfortunately mean that we lose strong women. Now, at the end of the last election, there was a review done extremely well by my colleague Jane Hume with Brian Loughnane. That then went to our state divisions, and while I appreciate this is sort of inside talk for those listening to this, you know, the construction of the Liberal Party is a federated one. So all of those state divisions adopted and were encouraged by the recommendations, which included that pathway to get a higher percentage of women. And I will certainly re-engage with all of those different organisations within our party to absolutely understand how we can improve that trajectory of women. Now, with respect to Mr Albanese, he has made comments to me. I'm not going to reflect on them today. I want to start with a positive relationship with the Prime Minister, and I want to do that with goodwill, because every good government deserves a strong opposition, and we will be that strong opposition without doubt. But the type of opposition we will be is that every day we will stand up for our values to anyone, anywhere, and we'll do it in the public debate and we'll do it in the Parliament. When I see that this Labor Party, and it'll happen many times, disagrees with those values or acts not in accordance with them or puts in place legislation that is not in the interests of the Australian people, you will expect a very tough, very determined leader in me and a very strong, very determined team.
Is the Deputy opposed to quotas and targets for women?
I support what the leader just said.
Okay, moving along.
Hi, Susan. Congratulations to you both. In among a whole host of comments you've made over the years, you told Parliament that you support the Palestinian cause in part out of the knowledge that the victors of World War II, including Australia, wrote a homeland cheque to cover the sins of the Holocaust and centuries of anti-Semitism in Europe, but it was the Palestinians who had to cash it. Do you still agree with that statement today?
I don't, and one of the great privileges of advancing in years and understanding is looking at issues that you might have once seen through one prism, through a different prism. And when I became deputy, colleagues raised with me some of these issues, and they have been thoroughly ventilated between then and now. But I do want to say that following my appointment as deputy, I took a trip at the invitation of Julie and Lisa, an outstanding colleague and dear friend, to Israel. And I spent a lot of time seeing what was happening on the ground and the impact of that trip and the changed geopolitical circumstances of the Abraham Accords, with Israel reaching out for peace to Saudi, to Morocco, and then, of course, the hideous events of October the 7th in Gaza have changed my thinking on the entire subject. Having said that, I remain a steadfast friend of the Palestinian people, and I wish that we had right now a partner in this peace process, and I wish that we had a leadership of the Palestinian people that was not letting them down quite so badly, because right now what we are seeing is not a party interested in peace with Israel. It is not a party interested in a secure Israel behind secure borders, and it is not a party interested in a just and lasting peace. Yes.
Congratulations to you both. This question is to Mr O'Brien. Chinese Australians have deserted the Liberal Party for a second election in a row. As someone who's lived in China and Taiwan, done business there, speaks fluent Mandarin, how are you, as Deputy Leader, going to reconnect with Chinese Australians? Do you need to change any policies, or is it all about the time?
Look, I mentioned before that I truly believe that Liberal values are Australian values. And as part of that value set is not just the freedom of opportunity, but the equality of all Australians. And sometimes people can talk about, Chinese Australians as if they're in some way different from the rest of Australia. I think that our multicultural communities in Australia need to be engaged very openly. They help define who we are. And what I find amazing as a federal MP at citizenship tests, citizenship ceremonies, is when you have new Australians, and sometimes it can be from China, coming in, to think that they are every bit an Australian as soon as they take that pledge, as is the Prime Minister, or the oldest of our Indigenous people. It's with that spirit, I believe, that we need to engage every diaspora, and that includes the Chinese Australian community.
There was some speculation after the Coalition's election defeat that whoever took the role of opposition leader would essentially be a caretaker opposition leader. They would be in the role for a year and a half before someone else stepped in. Will you still be standing here in 3 years' time as opposition leader? And also, if I can, when do you expect to be making announcements around your shadow ministry?
I'll make announcements around the shadow ministry in due course. Yes, I do absolutely expect to be standing here. And I've heard those remarks, and I find them interesting, because everyone who takes on this role takes it on, I believe, with the responsibility and the determination and the passion that I have. And 100% I will be here in 3 years, but more than that, we will be in a competitive position. We know that we can get there. We know that the vote for Labor was a very soft one, and it is vital that we do not let down those people who stood there on polling booths and said to us, "You will get there, won't you?" And the agenda that we present at the next election will be for all of those people, but it will be for other Australians too. It will be for every single Australian. I can't wait to get started on developing it, and I can't wait to see how well my team, our team, contributes to that.
Susan, can I ask, who is your political idol and why?
I'm often asked this question, and I don't have a political idol as such. But I have many people I admire who are not in public life, but they are the invisible people that nobody sees. They're the people that we meet as local representatives who walk through the doors of our electorate office, who ask for help when no one else will help them. We are often a place of last resort. And when we support them through some of the most difficult times in their life, perhaps a child who doesn't have access to the NDIS, perhaps someone who has an illness that they know they won't survive and they're worried about the future of their family, somebody who's homeless, somebody who is desperate. But I see the strength in them when they have more strength than I can imagine that I ever could just to get up in the morning and face the day. And it's those people who drive me and who inspire me.
Ms. Ley, you said, with your desire for the Liberal Party to represent modern Australia. Just to get your thoughts on, you're stood in front of 2 Australian flags. Do you agree with previous comments from, a range of people in your party that's divisive for leaders of the Liberal Party to stand in front of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander flags as well? And do you agree with Mr Dutton's remarks that welcome to country ceremonies are being overdone?
Well, you're characterising the flag issue as divisive, and I don't. I see it as something unifying.
I reflected on remarks from people in your party. That's not my opinion. It's a question to you about your opinion on that.
We should unite under the one Australian flag. That is my firm view. Of course, I'm happy to stand in front of the Indigenous flag, and I frequently do, and I frequently have. With respect to welcome for country, it's simple. If it's meaningful, if it matters, if it resonates, then it's in the right place. And as Environment Minister and Health Minister, I listened carefully and participated in welcome to country ceremonies that were all of those things. If it's done in a way that is ticking a box on a Teams meeting, then I don't think it is relevant. I think it actually diminishes the value of what it is, and it's important that we understand that. Mark.
The vote today was seen as a choice between a Conservative candidate and a Progressive candidate. I'm wondering, obviously the Progressive has won. Is it your objective to take the Liberal Party back towards the middle ground of politics in a more moderate way? How do you intend to do that?
I reject characterisations of left and right and conservative and all of those words that we've seen in the media this week. And I remember that Menzies said we're calling it the Liberal Party, not the Conservative Party, and we should remember that. Government is always formed in the sensible centre. But our Liberal Party reflects a range of views from all walks of life that are welcome in our party room, and that is one of our great strengths. But I do believe that government is ultimately formed in the sensible centre.
Thank you, and congratulations to both of you. Mrs. Ley, Ms. Ley, the question I've got is, and you just alluded to it there about the centre being the key. How are you thinking about the relationship with the National Party? One of the things people were saying as early as the night when you all got wiped out, that maybe it's time for a spell apart. Is that something you would endorse, or are you a strict coalitionist?
Coalition government is always stronger when there is a coalition between the Liberals and the Nationals, and I strongly believe that. I'm yet to have a conversation with David Littleproud, but when I do, it will be a constructive one. And I reckon a fellow who represents Maranoa, which includes the great location of Thargomindah, where I was based as an aerial mustering pilot, I think 2 people from Thargomindah can actually get this right.
Ms. Ley, you were the Shadow Minister for Women in the last term. Women obviously abandoned the Liberal Party for consecutive elections. You've said a lot about how it's time to listen to Australians, but in part of your role over the last 3 years, you were out there listening and talking to the women of Australia. So what were they telling you, and to what extent do you have to take responsibility for giving you a part of the leadership team and you had that portfolio for clearly not having reached them? Do you have any ideas of what kinds of policies you will need to look at to win back Australian women?
We should all share the responsibility of the result, and I don't step away from that for 1 second as a member of the leadership in the last government. As to what happened, why and how, we need to be transparent about that when the time comes and the appropriate review is done and is made public. I did listen to the women of Australia, but I also accept the message that many women sent, not all, but many sent on May the 3rd. And I said in my statement for candidacy for this position that we did let women down. There is no doubt about that. And it is true that the numbers of women who are supporting us is declining. And I want to rule a line under that. I don't want to see that decline for one more day. And that means a genuine, serious engagement with a new leadership team and a new agenda, and one that I will personally drive.
What was that message that you were picking up? I mean, this is a party that over recent years has said things like women should be grateful for a highway as they give birth on the side of the road. Even in this term that, you know, women are intelligent, they can appreciate defence and national security policy, but clearly the offering wasn't there. They didn't feel that you were representing them. What were those messages you were getting?
Well, I don't agree that those were the messages they were hearing, and I don't want to say what the messages they were hearing were, except that they didn't support us. And I have to acknowledge that, have to accept it, and have to act on it, and I will.
Sussan Ley, there was also a big diverse community response to the Liberal Party offering, and you were deserted by a lot of diverse communities as well. Do you need to, and will you rethink your migration policy, including the cut to permanent migration and net overseas migration? And why do you think that you didn't get the support from those communities? Do you think those migration policies were in fact alienating?
We need to find that out, and it is true that seats with high migrant numbers, in many respects, we lost, but we lost other seats which were not like that too. So we're not going to jump to conclusions about the reasons why we lost the vote in certain areas. But migration policy and the way it intersects with education policy and the issues of student visas and the issues of regional visas that support areas where I live, where it's hard to get a workforce, all of those things will be on the table with respect to the next steps of policy development.
So how do you reflect on being the first female leader in 2025, and perhaps that your appointment at this time is an example of the glass cliff effect?
It's an interesting question, the glass cliff, and I actually don't accept it in my appointment. But I do say that it does send a signal to the women of Australia that the Liberal Party has elected its first woman leader, but my agenda is about much more than that. Of course, it is about reconnecting with women and listening to where we went wrong, but when you develop a cohesive, consultative party room process, it includes a range of views, and I know that I can lead that effectively and well. And I will say that one of the hallmarks of my style as Deputy Leader, and in fact my work in the Parliament for the time that I've been here, has always been consultation. It's always been a really strong work ethic, but it's always been listening really carefully to what people say. Now I'm going to go to Hans because yes.
You say you want to meet people where they are. Do you have a sense of why your party isn't where people are already, based off any discussions you've had in the last week?
I think we've all got a sense about where we went wrong, and it's different in different locations. And maybe issues like the messaging or the dynamic that people saw through the media of who we were, but then changed their mind when they saw their candidates. There are so many things in people's minds, if I can sort of capture that, when they walk in to vote. And it just comes back to listening to what they tell us now about why they didn't support us and where we went wrong. Just here.
Ms. Ley, are you interested in advocating for economic reform, changes to the tax system, things like that have been traditional areas for the coalition?
It'll be very much what we consider as a party room going forward, and I'm delighted that we have many people in our party room with great economic credentials, with great interest in economic and taxation policy, and in fact in all policies. And I believe it's core business of the Liberal Party to be working on economic tax policy, and I think we do need a new economic narrative going forward that seeks, again, answers from Australians about how we can best support them with policies that help them to get ahead.
Moderates have been damning about a lack of climate ambition. Can you guys really afford another climate war to start off your tenure?
There isn't going to be a climate war. There is going to be sound, sensible consultation, and I undertake 100% to do that. Before we finish, and we've called last question, can I just add to an answer that I gave before? Because one of the biggest threats to social cohesion in this country is the Prime Minister's approach to Jewish Australians. And everything that happens overseas, and I've reflected on that with the hideous events in Gaza, has domestic implications. We have a Foreign Minister, Penny Wong, who has let down Australia in the UN. And we have a Prime Minister who is intent, it seems, on letting down Jewish Australians on the streets of our cities. And one thing I have heard consistently over the last 2 years has been this sense of isolation, fear, and real concern for our wonderful Jewish Australians. And I want to make clear that going forward, we will work very hard to hold this Prime Minister and this government to account, because it is not acceptable to see what we have seen on the streets of our cities, in the universities, and to hear the stories that I have heard from our Jewish Australian community have, in many cases, particularly when it's young women who are studying, it has made my heart break. So I want to emphasise that I know, and you've talked to Ted about issues with the Chinese community, and people have reflected migration policy. Social cohesion is really, really important, and we will get that right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Gaza